course. The question we are asking ourselves is how this animal happened to reappear after all these centuries and so near to the coast of Japan. Let us call this creature Godzilla.
What's going on, people? LP2000 right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summit Kaiju and on behalf of Collect All Monsters. And today we're bringing you another great X-Plus figure review for today. A Holy Grail figure review. So let's dive head first into this review. Yes. And today we're taking a look at the X-Plus 30cm true colored version of the Winter Wonderfest 2013 Godzilla 1954 Ric Exclusive figure based off the iconic film that started it all in the Godzilla franchise, Gojira, or Godzilla 1954 or 1956 Godzilla King of the Monsters. And as you can see, I have the beautiful figure here, as well as the box. You know, we do things around here. Let's get into the box before we get into the figure. And just like you saw in my previous video of the Ric 64, this is just a plain cardboard box with the, Godzilla's name on the front, 1954 Winter Wonder Festival 2013, Ric Exclusive Edition. No artwork of the figure on the cover of the box. But still, this is such a special grab for me, so I'm not going to really trash the box because this figure was a long hunting acquisition in the making, and I'll touch on that right now. I've been trying to hunt down this figure for the longest time. Now, mind you, when I first got into X-Plus, it was late 2012, 2013, and I was getting my feet wet into the X-Plus collecting game, and I had no idea about, Winter Wonderfest or just Wonderfest exclusives or anything like that, right? And once I saw this figure, I really was enamored with it. You know what I mean? Now, mind you, this review is timely because at the time of this recording, it is what? February the 4th of, February 5th of 2020. And in just a couple short days in Japan on February 9th, 2020, they're having, I should say, the Winter Wonder Festival show in Japan on February 9th, you know what I mean? And X-Plus has already announced they're going to be there, and they're going to showcase some great new stuff. What we're going to expect in the coming months of this year. So I can't wait for that. So the time of this review is really timely. You know what I mean? Even though y'all knew it was going to be the next review if you saw my last video of the Ric 64. But yeah, I've been wanting to get this guy for the longest time. Now, mind you, when this figure first came out, X-Plus first made this figure of the 30cm 1954 Godzilla, I believe in 2011, but it was in a black and white paint scheme, signifying how he looked in the original film, because, the original film was in black and white. This represents Godzilla if the film was actually colored. That's why he has this colored paint scheme all over his body, which is a really cool paint scheme. More on that later. But they made they made a black and white version. The first version was made in 2011. The Ric Exclusive of that figure was a mini oxygen destroyer that actually they brought forth with this release. It was also released again, the black and white version of the 30cm 54 Godzilla, I want to say in 2013, also through Diamond Distributors, and they made a RMC resin version, I believe, in 2014, and they brought out this one as a Wonder Festival exclusive in 2013. And this is a very fine, you know what I mean? Because they only made like, for what I understand, 300 to 500 figures for that particular show. So if you thought the regular 54s were hard to find, this was probably the hardest to find in the marketplace. And I happened to come across Monterake one day, the same time that I got my Ric 64 that you saw in my previous video, and I happened to score both of them at the same time. And to score not one, but two figures that I've been rabidly trying to hunt down for the longest time, was really a collecting milestone for me. And I'm so happy that I finally got my hands on this figure after years of searching. And a few times I did come close to actually grabbing it. But this figure, with it being so scarce, right, and it was on a limited run, once he got in the aftermarket, he was horribly overpriced on so many different levels. Like the 64 that you saw in my last video, I seen this guy go up to $500, $1,000. I even seen like $1,200, and that's with the figure without the oxygen destroyer and with minor paint chips here and there off the figure. But that's how rare and that's how really expensive this figure has gone for in the past. But I was able to score it for a relatively good price. Once again, a little bit steep, but it was in my price range that I wanted to get it, or buy it, I should say. And here he is in his full glory. Once again, I love this figure. I love the 1954 Godzilla, especially with this figure. Now, mind you, I've got my share of 1954 Godzillas when it comes to X-Plus. They pretty much done every single version of the 54 in their respective lines, except for the favorite sculptors line. We got a gigantic, a Sakai, Defo Real, multiple 30 centimeters, a 25 centimeter, you know what I mean? And you know, we are well represented when it comes to the 54s. But I have to say, when it comes to the best, the one that I really love the most, before this guy arrived, it actually was the Sakai. I think the Sakai is actually the best version that X-Plus has ever done, as far as like suit accuracy, paint scheme wise, the whole 9 yards. But I have to say, personally, this is my favorite. Even though I can objectively say that Sakai is the best 54 that you could ever find, but in my collection, I'm going with this one, with the Sakai being a close second behind it. So that's pretty much it with the backstory about me getting this figure, the backstory on X-Plus, producing these figures. Once again, they have done a phenomenal job with the 54. The only one I'm not really a big fan of is the 25 centimeter, but I'll talk about that when I bring up all the 54s I have in my collection and my wife's collection for size comparisons later on. So you know, we do things right here. Let's get up close and personal with this guy right here. The X-Plus 30 centimeter Winter Wonderfest Festival 2013 Ric Exclusive True Color version of Godzilla 1954. Try saying that 3 times fast. All right, let's get up close and personal right now. Okay, folks, here we are up close and personal. Now, I think it's very appropriate that I bring forth the black and white version of the 30 centimeter 54 to compare it with this version so you can see the differences between the two figures. Now, mind you, the only thing that's different is obviously the paint scheme. It's virtually the exact same sculpt as the original 54. They just painted it differently, obviously. They didn't do anything to change the head, dorsal plates, or tail, or anything like that. They just virtually just colored it down, you know, gave it natural Godzilla colors. But as you can see, they look so well together. They really do. Two awesome, magnificent 54s, courtesy of X-Plus. And once again, we've seen this time and time again where X-Plus have taken already existing figures and repackaged them into new ones. And basically, this is like double dipping. That's basically what this is. Even though the 54, the black and white version, is Sandra's, but seriously, this is not the first time there's a case of double dipping in this household. You know what I'm saying? I got like 2 gigantic GMKs. I got like 2 versions of Rodan, the 1964 Rodan. I have a couple Gaigans I double dipped on. The Flying King Ghidorah, that's another one. I got the regular King Ghidorah 68. I got the Flying King Ghidorah. Even though the flying one is somewhat different sculpt-wise, it's virtually the same figure. But we've all done it, you know what I mean? We've all double-dipped, and I'm sure a lot of folks will double-dip in the future when it comes to certain figures. It just depends on your perspective. And I know some people kind of like frown upon double-dipping. They don't really see the need in that. And I see the argument on both sides. I look at it like this: if you can afford it and you really want it, why not double dip? You know what I'm saying? Especially if it's a kaiju that you really love, you know what I'm saying, and you love seeing him in different paint variants or stuff like that. I don't see anything wrong with that. Or if you just don't see the need for it and just think that it's just kind of redundant to double dip on one figure, I see the argument for that. So it just depends on your perspective. But this is such a nice figure. Don't want to go into all the ins and outs of it because I already covered the 54, the black and white version, a long time ago in my channel. It's in the archives. So I won't go over as far as like, you know, details on the sculpt and blah, blah, blah. As you can see between the two 54s, the sculpt looks awesome. And I think sometimes, you know what, I don't think this figure gets enough credit for being a solid 54. A lot of people tend to gravitate towards the Sakai, and rightfully so. People tend to rag on the Gigantic for his shortcomings. A lot of people love the train biter, the multiple train biters, the Defo Real, you know what I mean? But I think sometimes lost within that conversation, we tend to forget how awesome the 3rd centimeter is. You know what I'm saying? I really don't see anything embellished on this figure. I would say this figure is really suit accurate. I think the one thing that Sakai has above this version is that it has crisper detail. It has sharper detail in the sculpt, in the paint job of that figure. But imagine if this figure had the sharp detail as a Sakai. I would say this would probably be the best one. This one or the black and white version, you know? But yeah, this is such an awesome figure. Once again, I won't go into all the ins and outs of the sculpt. Let's just talk about the paint job. The paint job is awesome. This was the main reason why I want to get this figure, aside from the Oxygen Destroyer, which we'll talk about last, and aside from the fact this is a rare exclusive figure, the paint job is what sold me on this figure. You know what I mean? I even thought about, actually, through the years, when I was trying to hunt this figure down, I actually thought about if I couldn't get this figure because it was horribly overpriced, I actually thought about getting another black and white 54 and sending it off to one of my kaiju artists, extraordinaires, friends of mine like David Eric, Mark Sang-Yang, Steve Savajoli, Burley Vang, you know what I mean, Steve Herron, Ron McKay. I actually thought about buying another black and white 54, sending that off to them, one of them, and have them repaint this as the true color version of the Wonderfest 54. And I'm sure they would have done a phenomenal job, and I'm not taking anything from that. And trust me, if I couldn't find this guy, more likely I probably would have went that route. But a part of me wanted the actual figure from the Wonderfest. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, that's how desperate and really dedicated I was to get this figure, or at least some variation of this figure. I was willing to go that route, but you know, lo and behold, patience does pay off. But get back to this paint job. Paint job is awesome with the dark charcoal gray all over Godzilla's body here. The dorsal plates look amazing. Dirty bone white dorsal plates that go from the top of his head all the way down to the tip of the tail. Just a great job on the dorsal plates, as well as dirty bone color on the claws, as well as the toenails here. Such a great job on that. The teeth individually sculpted. I think it's kind of like dirty yellow bone white on the teeth. The mouth is colored red. Once again, if Godzilla 54 was presented in color, this is what you would have gotten. But I also think, as you can see closer here on the body here, there's traces of brown, highlights of brown all over Godzilla's body here. And it kind of would make me wonder, if the film was presented in color, if Godzilla was this color in the film, it would have gave off a vintage vibe. And you know what? This gives this figure a vintage vibe. You know what I mean? Even though it wasn't exactly how it was in the final cut of the film, but the brown highlights all over Godzilla here just adds to the overall vintage vibe to this figure, which even makes it that much more valuable in my opinion. You know what I mean? But once again, the sculpt, the paint detail is so awesome on this guy. Yes, I highly recommend you try to find this guy. Good luck on that, because trying to find this guy is a task in and of itself. But I think if you're able to find this guy for a good price, I think you will be in good hands if you're able to score this guy. Now, let me just tell you this. At the time of this recording, There is one on Mandarake right now. There is the exact same figure. This figure, the Wonderfest 2013 54 True Color version, Ric Exclusive. It is on Mandarake right now. When I checked the website yesterday, it's still on sale. Nobody hasn't picked it up yet. So if you want this figure, now mind you, it's a little bit expensive. But considering what it's going for on Mandarake, I've seen it go twice as expensive. So I don't think you can get any better price for what they're going for on Mandarake right now. So if you want this figure, go for it, please. You would not be disappointed. Want to just give y'all that tidbit of information. But before we go, let me talk about the Oxygen Destroyer. Yes, this is the Ric Exclusive of this figure, aside from the fact that it's painted differently. This is actually the original Oxygen Destroyer that killed the original Godzilla. It's in pristine condition, and I really do like that. Of course, they have made other Oxygen Destroyer Ric Exclusive pieces for other Godzilla figures before, like the one that came with the gigantic burning Godzilla. There's one that came with the 30cm burning Godzilla. And if you want to count this one, I guess you can. There's a minifigure of Dr. Serizawa holding the Oxygen Destroyer that came with the 25cm version of the 54. So they have gotten their share of Oxygen Destroyers well represented as far as X-Plus Ric Exclusives, and I'm glad I got this one. This really is a nice piece. Now I do have the gigantic burning Godzilla one. Between the two, you know what? I tend to gravitate towards the gigantic burning Godzilla as far as Oxygen Destroyer goes, but they both look awesome. I really would like to get my hands on the 30cm version, the clean one with the green tint in it, you know what I mean? But until that happens, I'm perfectly fine with these Oxygen Destroyers. Yes, they have done a phenomenal job with both of these pieces, and I'm glad I got it. But once again, this is such a great, solid release from X-Plus. Once again, a collective milestone for me to find this figure after years and years of searching, and I'm glad he's finally here. Once again, the X-Plus True Color version of the Winter Wonderfest 2013 Ric Exclusive figure of the 1954 Godzilla. Yes, yes, yes. So you know what? Let's do a couple size comparisons, and I come back with my final thoughts of the Oxygen Destroyer versus Godzilla from the 1954 film, as well as how will Dr. Serizawa plays into that and my whole thought process behind that. So let's go with the first size comparison right now. Okay, folks, this is the first size comparison, or just comparison in general, and alongside the True Color version of the Winter Wonder Festival 2013 Ric Exclusive edition of the 1954 Godzilla, I have two of his Showa 30cm counterparts. Yes, I have the 64 to the right, the Ric Exclusive 64 with the blue LED dorsal plates. And to the left, I have the 62, the King Gojira Ric Exclusive with the light up dorsal plates. Once again, such a great comparison between these three awesome Showa Godzillas. Now, these figures are awesome. All three of these figures came out in the year of 2013. All these figures are Ric Exclusive reissues, and all these figures, in my opinion, represent probably the best solid three releases of that year of 2013. That year was awesome. If you really think back about it, they released the 54 at Wonder Festival back in February or March of that year, right? Then they came forth with the 64 in the summer. Then they came forth with the 62 like late October going into November. Alongside these figures, I think the 30cm 84 came out that year. An awesome figure, my first X-Plus figure, mind you. They came out with the 30cm 1999 Godzilla, the first one, the 1999 30cm Gamera, as well as they brought forth at the tail end of that year the first figure in the Gigantic series, the X-Plus Gigantic series GMK. So I just pose this question to y'all. Was 2013 the best year for as like X-Plus figures as far as like Godzilla is concerned? I think a case can be made for it. But I think when it comes to 2013, these figures are the best that year had to offer. You know what I'm saying? And imagine producing one great Godzilla figure in, this year. But like I said, aside from these three, you had the 30cm 1999, the gigantic GMK, the first round, you know what I'm saying, the 84. I'm sure there's a couple that I'm missing, but these three right here, these three are the best, in my opinion, the best that year had to offer. Especially if you're a Showa fan, these three are quite arguably, when it comes to Godzilla being a villain, these three are probably the most popular Godzillas when it comes to the Showa series. I know a lot of folks tend to gravitate towards the superhero ones, but you can't deny all these figures, repackaged and awesome reissues, are such great figures. And I highly recommend, if you can find any of these figures, whether it's the 64, the 54, or the 62, man, you can't go wrong with either of these figures. Yes, yes, yes. So that's it with the first size comparison between these three awesome 30 centimeter Showa Godzillas, the 62, the 54, and the 64, my favorite. All right, yes, so that's it with the first size comparison. So let's go with the last size comparison, because I don't want to drown this figure review in a whole bunch of size comparisons. So I'm going to bring up all the 54s between my collection and my wife Sandra's collection, and you'll see what they look like in this awesome image of the 54s in our collection. So let's go with the 1954 collection right now. Okay, folks, this is the last size comparison, or comparison in general, and oh man, I'm wrong. I'm so wrong. I didn't think about it till now I'm looking at this shot. But why did I put the Oxygen Destroyer right there in the middle between all those Godzillas? And every single one of them is looking down on it and looking at me like, really? You gonna do this right now? I'm sorry, Godzilla. Just bear with it for a couple seconds. But yeah, these are all the 1954 Godzillas that comprise my wife Sandra's and my collection. You know what I mean? All of them X-Plus. All of them are awesome. Of course, we have the train biter to the left, the original 54 black and white 30 centimeter. The big guy in the back, the gigantic, of course, the man in the owl, the true color version. And we have the Sakai off to the right. The only ones that are missing is I don't have a Death Reel and I don't have the 25 centimeter version. Out of all of them, I'm not really feeling the 25 centimeter version, quite frankly. I just don't find that figure to be too appealing. It's not a bad figure, but it's not one of the best either. But I still find it to be an okay figure, but it's not bad like the 25 centimeter 62 or 25 centimeter Burning Godzilla. It's not that bad off. It's just okay, but not as great in my opinion as these right here. Really, if I was to get that figure, I would probably want to get it for the Serizawa piece that came along with it, but still, it's an okay figure at the end of the day. But I think all these figures are really, really, really awesome. And once again, X-Plus has done a phenomenal job with the 54. Like I mentioned with the 64 as well as the 89, I don't think they have made a dud when they brought forth many 89s and many 64s. Like I said, I can't say the same for the 62 as well as the Burning Godzilla. I think 25 centimeter versions of those designs are kind of like off. Kind of mediocre if you want to be blunt with it. But I think with the 54, they've done a phenomenal job. I think, like I said, the weakest one of the bunch is the 25 centimeter version. You know what I mean? But it's still an okay figure at the end of the day. But yeah, these look awesome. Once again, these are great representations of the 54. Now the train biter, once again, the train biter, it's really a stylized take of the 54, even though it didn't really appear on screen. So it is an awesome figure. The 30 centimeter 54 as well as the true color version. Once again, I think maybe it's highly underrated. You know, especially when you compare it to the Sakai. You know what I'm saying? Of course, like I mentioned earlier, I think if the 54, the 30 centimeter version had the detail, crisp detail as the Sakai, maybe that one would be probably the better 54. But it still is a solid release and probably gets more praise than it should. Speaking of get more praise than it should, I'm going to talk about the gigantic. Yes, it doesn't have the crisp detail that you would associate with a Yuji Sakai piece, because it is a Yuji Sakai piece. But I go both ways on this figure. I'm glad to have it, but I do wish that it was a little bit cheaper when I bought it. Like, the price didn't justify the lack of detail that we got. But it still is a great, great figure, and I think everybody really should have it in their collection. Or at least any 54 in their collection, mind you. And of course, the Sakai, awesome, in my opinion, the best one, objectively the best one that you could ever find. Suit accuracy-wise, you know, crisp detail on the figure. It's an awesome representation. But like I said earlier, I think the 30 centimeter, a case can be made for that one as well. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, there's no embellishments on that figure. There's nothing that's exaggerated or anything like that. To me, it is suit accurate. Just the one thing that it doesn't have over the Sakai is the crisp detail, but it's still a solid figure nonetheless. Yeah, so that's pretty much it with the size comparisons. Once again, this is such an awesome, awesome image right here. All the 54s in my and my wife's collection. Yes, yes, yes. Once again, I'm sorry about the Oxygen Destroyer Godzilla. Just bear with it for a couple more seconds. And speaking of Oxygen Destroyer, let's go with my final thoughts of this video, and let's talk about the Oxygen Destroyer versus Godzilla for the 1954 film and how does Dr. Serizawa, the iconic Dr. Serizawa, play into that. So let's go with that final portion of the video right now. Okay, folks, I'm back with my final thoughts at the X-Plus 30cm true colored version of the 1954 Godzilla, courtesy of the Winter Wonder Festival in 2013, Ric Exclusive edition. And once again, a 10 out of 10 figure. Once again, I'm so glad I got my hands on it. It's an awesome piece. It really is an awesome piece. I guess the burning question is, if it came down between this one and the Sakai, which one do I feel you should choose? I don't know about that one. I really don't know about that one, quite frankly. I would say between the two, go for the one that's cheaper. Because both of them are going to be up there in price. Probably more so this one. I would say if you can get your hands on this one, and it's for a relatively good price, go for this one first. Because this one is actually more rare than the Sakai. But either way, both are solid representations of the 1954 Godzilla, you know what I mean? And I highly recommend you try to go after the Sakai, this one, as well as the other 54s. Like I said, the one that I'm not too impressed with too much is the 25cm version, but it still is a good figure, you know what I'm saying? And once again, I think the 54, like the 64, you know what I'm saying, like the 89, I think X-Plus has done a phenomenal job with every single one of those designs where they have not produced a dud. The 62 and the Burning Godzilla, not so much, because the 25cm versions of both those designs are kind of like off when it comes to X-Plus. But the 54, 64, 89, they have done a phenomenal job. Even Shin, they have done a phenomenal job of what they have done for us X-Plus. So you can't go wrong with any of the 54s that you have seen in this video. But in my opinion, try and go for this one first, as well as the Sakai. So let me talk about my thoughts when it comes to the Oxygen Destroyer versus Godzilla. And this is something that I've always said when it comes to Godzilla fans or new Godzilla fans. And of course, every Godzilla fan is not going to come into the hobby or come into the film franchise at the same time. We all come in it in different ways. Some people come through it when he's a villain. Some people come through with it when he's a superhero or an anti-hero or a father figure or whatever. But I highly recommend that even if you don't care for the original 54 film in terms of the film or the design of Godzilla, I think every Godzilla fan owes it to themselves to go back and watch the original film to see where everything came from. You know what I mean? I highly recommend seeing both versions, the American version as well as the original Japanese version. I've said this many times before on my channel. I actually prefer the American version, you know what I mean? But I'm not discounting the Japanese version. Between the two versions, the Japanese is the heavier version. You know what I'm saying? It's more thought-provoking, you know what I mean? Whereas the American version, even though it does have subtle hints of the thought-provoking messages from the Japanese release, that film, the American version, is more about a giant monster being on the loose, which was kind of like the theme of that decade with multiple giant monster films going on at the time. But I have to say, you have to watch both versions. And when it comes to the final act, or at least throughout the movie, there's a love triangle that is introduced in the film between Emiko, Ogata, and Dr. Serizawa. And at the end, you really feel for Dr. Serizawa. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people tend to talk about that much. People tend to talk about how powerful the Oxygen Destroyer is. Some people talk about, you know, the death of Godzilla, or whatever. But I think a lot of people should really focus on Dr. Serizawa and try to identify what he was going through. You know what I mean? Because, you know, in the film, you know, he does create the Oxygen Destroyer at the same time that Godzilla has fully revealed himself to the world. Godzilla has basically laid waste to Japan or to Tokyo twice. And now Dr. Serizawa is forced to use his weapon against Godzilla. Now, mind you, when he developed this weapon, he only told one person what he was doing, and that was Emiko. But after Godzilla destroyed Tokyo for the second time, she shared what Serizawa told her with Ogata in the Japanese version, and as well as Ogata and Steve Martin from the American version. Now, mind you, also, Emiko and Serizawa, they were arranged to get married. I think that's an old Japanese custom, like when they're children, I think some families ordain their kids to grow up and become married at some point. So Serizawa was basically in love with Emiko, but Emiko is in love with Ogata. So Emiko and Ogata go to Serizawa and say, look, you know, Ogata is talking to Serizawa and he says, look, I know about your Oxygen Destroyer. You know what I'm saying? So Serizawa knows at that point that Emiko betrayed his trust. And not only that, she has fallen in love with him. So now he is forced to basically give up his life's work and lose his woman all at the same time. And so when he goes down to the bottom of the ocean to deploy the weapon along with Ogata, when I first saw this film, you know, it was really a somber scene. In fact, the whole movie is somber, if you really think about it. But you see Ogata and Serizawa at the bottom of the ocean, you know, and they're just walking on the floor of the ocean, getting closer and closer to Godzilla. Godzilla wakes up and starts making his way towards them. So then they pull up Ogata. Meanwhile, Serizawa is still at the bottom of the ocean, ready to deploy the weapon, and he does deploy the weapon, which does begin to kill Godzilla. And then all of a sudden, he takes a knife and cuts the airline. And then when they pull the airline, Serizawa's nowhere to be found. And it's not like they can jump in the water and save them, because the water is basically toxic at this point to any creature on Earth. So they couldn't really save him. So he chose to commit suicide. Versus, you know, having the secrets of the Oxygen Destroyer, you know, go on to be told to another person or whatever. The secrets of the Oxygen Destroyer died with him. And also at the same time, he probably felt he had nothing left to live for anyway. His life work is gone. The woman that he loves is in love with somebody else. And he even said, and at least they say in the American version, that he tells Ogata, you know, I want you to be happy with Emiko. And that is so sad. On top of Godzilla's death, on top of that, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, Godzilla is really not at fault of what he does. Humanity, humans, we're the one that brought him back. We're the one that brought him back to civilization. And now he's trying to exact revenge on us because we disturbed his sleep. So on top of that, Godzilla, if you really think about it, is really not an evil creature, especially in this story. He's more so a victim. And also Serizawa's a victim. And it's kind of appropriate and kind of ironic that the two major victims or tragic heroes or tragic figures, the most tragic figures in this story, both Godzilla and Serizawa both died together at the bottom of the ocean. And of course, when Godzilla dies, you know, the menace is gone, and you know, it should be this feeling of, you know, celebration. But it's not. It's just so sad. You know, there's no winners here. You know what I'm saying? Even though Godzilla's gone, but yet we lost Serizawa. And considering what he was going through the last stages of his life and why he chose to kill himself, once again, the original Godzilla film wasn't really made for kids, especially the original Japanese version. But I highly advocate every Godzilla fan to go back and watch that film. If you watch the most recent Godzilla film, King of the Monsters from the Monsterverse, and you have not yet gone back, watch the original films, the Showa films, or even the Heisei, you owe it to yourself to watch the original film, both the Japanese and the American version. That way you can get a good perspective on where Godzilla really came from. Because a lot of people tend to think that he came from Megalon, when he was drop-kicking Megalon, or when he fought Mechagodzilla, or those great fun superhero moments. But no, Godzilla at his core was a tragic character that evolved into a superhero, that evolved into an anti-hero, that evolved into a father figure, and all these great things that he would go on to become. But that doesn't happen without the awesomeness of the 1954 Godzilla, and I highly advocate everybody to go back and watch that film, because you would not be disappointed, and you will get good clarity and perspective on why we love this monster, and why this monster has the most longevity of pretty much any pop culture icon or character in this modern day. Alright? So yes, I love this figure. I love the movie. Once again, an awesome movie, and once again, such an awesome repackaged take of this awesome character. The X-Plus 30cm Winter Wonderfest Festival 2013 True Colored version of the Ric Exclusive edition of the 1954 Godzilla, based off his appearance in the original Gojira, Godzilla 1954, or Godzilla King of the Monsters 1956. Alright, so that pretty much concludes my review of the X-Plus 30cm Winter Wonderfest Festival 2013 True Colored version, Ric Exclusive edition of the 1954 Godzilla, based off his appearance, like I said, in the original Gojira, Godzilla 1954, as well as Godzilla King of the Monsters. If you have any questions, hop me down in the comment section. Hit me on Facebook via Leslie P. Chambers. We'll definitely go from there. Yes, once again, a great solid release. And as I mentioned in my last video of the 64, these figures are out there. You have to hunt for them, you know what I mean? And once again, as I mentioned in that video, I think the thrill of hunting these figures are gone now, because it's relatively easy to get X-Plus figures. But every now and then, it's fun to try and hunt down that one figure that we don't really see a lot of, you know what I'm saying? You got to hunt on this site, hunt on that site, and just, you know, be on the sites on a regular basis, and just hoping that one day you'll come across a rare gem like I did. The thrill of the hunt is somewhat gone, but yet these figures are still out there to be reclaimed and put in your collections. And as I mentioned in my last video, I think Mandarake is the best option for you, or maybe Buyee, because eBay is going to go the horribly overpriced route. You know what I'm saying? There's no way to get around that. But I think the Buyee, especially Mandarake, are your best options to find these figures. And they are out there. Trust me, I'm living proof. To get the Ric Exclusive 64 and this awesome version of the true color version of the 54 all at the same time, if it can happen for me, it can definitely happen for you. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, this review is timely because once again, Wonder Festival 2020 is going down in Japan in the next 3 or 4 days, and we should be in for some good stuff from X-Plus, some really new stuff from X-Plus. And on top of that, tune in to Collect All Monsters the following week on Saturday, January the 15th from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time or 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Standard Eastern time. And yes, that show will be devoted to Wonderfest with myself, Kyle Young, Christine Chapin, John Ruffin, and David Eric Dopko get together and talk about that awesome show far as Wonderfest in Japan. And we hope to see you there. Once again, Saturday, January 15th from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Eastern time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Yes, we hope to see you there in the chat room. It should make for a really fun show. And once again, lots of stuff is coming here on the channel with multiple reviews. I got the Rodan 56 25cm from X-Plus coming. I still got to do the 25cm Orga and Godzilla 2000. I'm doing a double figure review of Gore Swords, the 25cm version and 30cm versions. That figure review is dedicated to Gojira 851. More on that when that video comes up. And lots of stuff is coming. I got my hands today of a couple Death for Real releases of the King Ghidorah Monsterverse 2019 Death for Real Standard Edition. And I got the Ric Exclusive set of the 1955 Godzilla and Anguirus set. And those reviews will be forthcoming as well. So look for those reviews coming in the near future. So if I don't see you on those reviews, I'll see you on Collect All Monsters on January 15th, and it should make for a fun time. And once again, thank you so much, everybody, to making us get to 2,000 subscribers. At the time of recording, we are past the 2,000 subscriber mark, and I can't thank y'all enough for watching my videos, sharing my videos, just enjoying it, and subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, and more videos will be coming soon to repay y'all for getting us past 2,000. I'm really honored and privileged to have that bestowed upon me. And once again, it wasn't just a me effort. There are a lot of people that I collab with that brought us here to where we are today, and none of that doesn't happen without their support, with your support, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Trust me when I say that. So I thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see y'all again on this figure move review. All right? Y'all take it easy.